Where do we start with England and this debacle?
Well, that was the worst performance I've ever seen from an England team. Ever.
The long, long wait is over. A Wembley roar to hail England's history makers.
Hello and welcome to the Borough Breakdown podcast, the road to Berlin, and whoever said England and penalties are a fatal match? I love how all you can hear in that is Liv. It's just my favourite thing. Matt and Tom join me for this one. Guys, please tell me how you're feeling after that.
It's hard to not just be on an incredible high after that. I think for a number of reasons. I think there was an improvement in the performance itself, I think, which was encouraging without being spectacular. But to dispatch the 5 penalties as calmly as we did, I think it's probably the most impressive penalty shootout I've ever seen from an England team. And you take the Slovakia game, but the overhead kick, the drama in that, and then what happened here coming from behind after 75 minutes, when I again thought we were absolutely down and out, it just feels like even though we're not playing well, we're getting the job done and individuals are pulling us through. We're winning games when we're not playing well. I don't want to jinx it, but it just feels like something might be happening. We're getting better without peaking, which I'm glad. I don't want to peak yet. So encouraging signs without getting too carried away, I'd say.
I feel sound. I was just saying before we started recording, and Matt was asking me what was going through my head when I was watching this, because obviously I wasn't a playthrough, but those scenes looked amazing. My heartbeat was rapid at that point, and it was probably the first time in this tournament where I'd got so properly invested where that was the case. I never felt nervous with, well, no, a lie, I did, but our penalty takers, I never felt like they were going to miss. I felt like I'd be more gutted if one did, because I was leaning more towards the fact that they were going to score. I think the fact that Pickford saved the first penalty really kind of my heartbeat would have been faster if that hadn't been the case.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit weird, and I don't want to temper it or anything from saying this, but like the last couple of other than the one against Italy, obviously, I've seen England have success in penalty shootouts, which 10 years ago, even, that wouldn't have been the case. I'd seen a lot of failure in penalty shootouts previously, so I was really hoping it wasn't going to go to penalties. The relief after winning it was, amazing. And then just on to Wednesday night. Now, I think, again, like I said on the last pod, after that game had finished, I kind of detached from it straight away and just said to my dad, all right, I'm going on. I'm going to go watch the boys now. So, yeah. It's probably going to be different on Wednesday night. But, yeah, amazing during that penalty shootout. And, yeah, like I say, I returned to normal fairly quickly, but I'm going to guess that wasn't the case for a lot of people watching that.
Yeah, I feel weird, like I haven't fully grasped or processed my emotion post-match. And I think it's probably because as I've grown up, all I've ever really known is England failing on penalties. And I know obviously at Colombia World Cup 2018, we succeeded on penalties, but that's still almost like a rarity for me watching England. But I think this is a change of tide, really, with this England team and Gareth Southgate's England team, especially, that we don't have to fail on penalties anymore. And I know that obviously the last Euros against Italy, we didn't manage to win from the spot, but I still think that this squad and these selection of players have got that technical quality, and they've also got their routine, absolutely nailed. Like the amount of times you saw the penalty takers just take their time. Like I was shitting myself at the back of play, Brew. I was stuck to the shutters. I honestly was going through it. But actually just taking that time, taking that deep breath and dispatching the penalties in the way that they did is, I think, a real flag in the sand that this England team do not have to fail anymore on penalties. And it was, just that triumph is really sweet, because I tweeted yesterday that there's no more terrifying viewing than watching England in a penalty shootout. But actually, there's no more sweeter feeling than England winning on a penalty shootout. So I'm so glad that we managed to do that. So Southgate made one personnel change for this game. Ezri Konsa in for Matt Gahey, who was obviously suspended. But he made a big system change, tweaking to a 3-4-2-1 to match Switzerland. Guys, what did you think of England's performance, bearing that in mind?
I thought it was better. I know we've still managed to kind of take it to extra time and penalties, and we weren't exactly, again, what everyone seems to expect from England now, where we've got this glut of attacking talent and we should be battering teams for that 5 or 6-0 every game and stuff like that. But I genuinely thought we played better yesterday, and I'm just thinking maybe for the rest of the tournament that's the formation to play. Obviously, I've said throughout the season on our borough-based pods that I don't like teams playing free at the back. I don't care in a tournament format. It's a one. No, what's the kind of word I'm looking for here? It's because the games are that important, and one game could end it. I don't care how you get through to the final, how you win it. Just do it. And yesterday, that formation, I think it seemed to give the players a little bit more confidence. They looked more comfortable in that shape. Obviously, having three at the back, I would say some of our scarier moments came from maybe, I would say, like a lack of chemistry at the back, maybe. And you know, I'm not necessarily saying we've been bad defensively, but it's when we've been trying to play out from the back and we're misplacing 5-yard passes and stuff like that. I'm just thinking having three at the back there, having the wing backs as options on either side, it might just make it a little bit easier on us to play out from the back, and then you can obviously progress up the pitch that way. So I thought it was the right decision. I believe it matched up Switzerland as well. I didn't look at the formations before the game, but I heard the commentator mention it throughout the match that Switzerland had a back five. I think it was the right decision. I think we played better. I would probably prefer to see us play that against Netherlands on Wednesday.
Yeah, I agree. I think the change was a nice surprise. I mean, we said last week, didn't we, that we didn't really have faith that he'd change much, but it was good to see Southgate finally change the system, and it proves that doesn't have to overhaul the team, as we've been saying throughout the tournament. You know, a change of system, a tweak here and there. I thought it allowed us to be higher up the pitch. We weren't sat as deep. Kane was able to press a little bit higher. It just gave us more of a degree of control on the game, especially in the first half. I thought we controlled it for large parts, again, without being particularly threatening. But I think you've got to obviously always respect the opposition in this case, and it doesn't matter who you're playing. You're in the quarterfinal of a major tournament. You've got to expect that you're going to go up against a pretty good team who've done well to get this far. So you can't expect to completely blow away teams at this stage. I mean, I think, was it the last tournament or was it the last year? I can't recall when we blew Ukraine away 4-0. I feel like fans expect England to do that in knockout games all the time now, but you've got to bear in mind that these are very tough games. It's all or nothing. It's nervy. We've seen in other nations in this competition, I mean, France have struggled like crazy to get over the line in their games. Their game against Portugal was dreadful, really. So you haven't got a God-given right to just rock up and blow the opposition away at this stage in a tournament. So I think the improved performance is definitely encouraging. And even when we went behind, the resilience and the character to come back, I think, is a really important trait to have in a tournament such as this. And even if Southgate's tactics and the way he sets us up isn't perfect, I said this in the last pod, we've got individuals who can just pull us through in moments when we need to. Saka did that. The reaction was really good, really impressive too. So I think you may have said in the last pod, Tom, we might just be a moments team. Maybe this is how England win the tournament, and we've seen many teams and nations win this tournament without being fantastic. Greece were far from great when they won it. Portugal, Italy. You don't have to play the best football. You've just got to find a way to win. And say what you will about this England team, we keep finding a way in their moments to win. So if we keep doing that for the next 2 games, I don't think anyone's going to care.
Plucky little England, eh? It's a good point, actually, on just finding a way to win, because one of the positives from yesterday was that Southgate did switch the system, and it was a pragmatic move from him, and it effectively nullified Switzerland's threat, which is high pressing on the fullbacks and then creating 2v1s on the flanks. There's no numerical advantage when you have the Swiss wing back and then their narrow forward against England's wing back and our wide centre half. I still, though, thought England weren't great. And yes, it was an improvement, but I do think we were a bit average, which is better than what we've seen. I felt like I was being gaslit at halftime because they were really talking up that performance, the BBC punditry panel, and I just didn't subscribe to it. Like, I thought England were a little bit better, but there's still a lot of issues within this team. I will stick to the positives, though. Obviously, that switch from Southgate was a positive, and he did that in the last Euros against Germany. He matched them up, so it was probably the go-to move, and he did that, and I think it in the end reaped the rewards, mostly because as I said, it combated Switzerland's strengths off the ball and their pressing patterns. It was also, it felt more cohesive and a little bit more balanced, and I feel like there was one big factor towards this, and it was Bellingham and Foden, the 210s. They weren't getting in each other's spaces. Foden was popping up mostly on the right, and then Bellingham on the left. There wasn't probably the most creative from both of them, but at least that, I mean, we've been whinging about it all tournament that they keep getting in each other's way, so that's a positive, at least that we didn't really see that yesterday, and it's something to build on for the next game. And another thing that I liked was that England had that width out wide with Trippier and Saka, but it was Saka that was exploiting Switzerland's line by running in behind. And the thing that I like within that especially is that he switched his game up. He was going on the inside and then he was taking it around the outside as well. There's been a degree of predictability with England's play that we did not see yesterday. And that's why for Saka's goal, he comes inside, and I think they probably just allow him that space to do that. And Declan Rice makes that underlapping run, and he's able to open up just that gap for Saka to basically shoot on goal. And I think that was probably the biggest and most important factor towards England coming out of that game with a victory, because, you know, Saka, we'll talk about him later, was absolutely fantastic within his performance. But it was that unpredictability that we've basically seen the opposite of in this tournament so far that was good. I also enjoyed the ball carrying from Mainoo and Bellingham in particular to try and break through. It doesn't always have to be through passing. It can be, you know, you just dribbling at the defence and through the midfield. Mainoo's been a plus point in that regard for me. I think obviously that's what he brings to the side, and I liked that. However, obviously, as I said, it wasn't the greatest performance, and this is why I thought this. We were a bit too slow in possession at times. There were elements of us sitting back. In the minutes before the Swiss goal, we did sit back, and the 3 at the back became a 5. We went deep again, and Trippier was still on the left, although it was good to see Shaw back. The biggest negative of that game was Harry Kane. I said to Johnny, is it just me, or is Harry Kane's movement really poor? And Saka got down that wing so many times, took it on the inside, took it on the outside, got balls into the box. Where was Harry Kane? His movement into the box was really, really bad. Really bad. Like, noticeably so.
I saw a tweet that said Harry Kane's movement makes Cristiano Ronaldo look energetic, and I couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah, it honestly, Tom, it was... I had to ask Johnny, or like kind of get his opinion on that, because I thought, am I seeing the wrong game here? Like, am I seeing this Do I need to go to Boots Opticians and get my prescription changed? Because Harry Kane is a world-class striker, and I don't think this is him. I think this is maybe on the system or how Southgate wants him to play. We know he's a world-class playmaker within that striker role because he drops deep and he threads those passes in behind, but he wasn't really doing that yesterday. And when you wanted Harry Kane to bust a fucking bollock to get in the box, he never did that. He kind of meandered, he laboured. So there's a big question mark around Harry Kane. A lot of people are saying, is he fit? To be honest, he doesn't really, he doesn't really look it, to be honest. But I was watching Gareth Southgate's interview with ITV last night, and he said something quite interesting that I do think is worth hearing.
You know, we're showing a lot of the characteristics you need to win tournaments. It's not just about playing well. You've got to show resilience. You've got to have courage. You've got to bounce back from setbacks. You've got to handle all of the noise that goes around the beginning of the tournament, for example. And now it's about how far you can go, and you know, there becomes a shift in the energy and a change in the belief of what's possible.
So he said it's not just about playing well. He mentioned resilience, courage, handling the noise, which I guess is the negativity. And I do want to credit England here because we've criticised their performance levels, and rightly so. We've not been good. But against Switzerland, it was the third time in the tournament that we've got a goal down and not been beaten. Denmark, Slovakia, Switzerland. Obviously, we'd much rather England not do that. We'd much rather they didn't go a goal down. But I still think that that's worth praising because those intangibles, their bollocks, their confidence despite the setbacks, I do think that is worth mentioning because I don't know this for sure, but I do feel like England teams of the past would have crumbled. You know, like Wayne Rooney, nice to see home fans booing you. Like, I don't know about yous, but I feel like that's maybe worth giving a bit of praise to.
It is something you can't know for sure because, like you say, it is an intangible quality. But I would agree. I think that England teams of the past would kind of panic there, and maybe we'd start going kind of all out Steve McLaren, throwing strikers on the pitch and just putting the ball into the box, and it wouldn't work out that way. But I actually think that stat might have been incorrect, and I'm pretty sure we went 1-0 up against Denmark, and then they equalised. So it would have been the second.
Oh yeah, sorry,
time.
Yeah.
But even so, like the last couple of games where we've done that, it is getting reminiscent to me of, say, when Michael Carrick's instilled this in Borough, because it, you know, we've seen it so often where, you know, we'll be in a certain position with a manager. So, say for example, Chris Wilder, where at the end we go a goal down, we may as well just leave the stadium because we're getting beat now, and then we've had Michael Carrick come in. He's instilled that kind of resilience into Borough. How many times over the last season, other than maybe say the first 7 games, have we gone a goal down and we're just kind of like, doesn't matter because we'll come back and win? Even the season we made the playoffs, I would say that feeling was a lot more resounding. So to me, I am seeing parallels between that in England and that in Borough. Cue England losing the next match 1-0. But the last couple of times it's happened, I've just kind of thought we do have it in us to get back into it. And I think even in, I wouldn't even say in the last Euros, but maybe the World Cup, we had a little bit of that resilience. I wouldn't say we had as much of it.
Yeah, you know what? It's really good to have that because we were talking about then finding a way to win. And I think at this point, the narrative's kind of changing. Gary Neville was mentioning it on ITV yesterday that maybe we need to just forget about England playing at their swashbuckling best or somewhere near it. Maybe this is just going to be a struggle. Maybe this is going to be a slog. Maybe we're not going to get better than this. But as we've kind of alluded to, we need to find a way to win. And fair play to England. We do have some balls. I'll tell you that. Right. And Bolo put in Switzerland 1-0 up. How did you two feel after that goal went in?
It was a strange feeling because I think I think I said this on the last pod as well. How many lives do we have as a team? You know, have we played our get out of jail free card? There was a part of me that thought, well, this has kind of been writing on the wall. We've seen this coming. We've said for numerous games, all it would take was a decent side to sort of put us away. And I thought, yeah, it's 75 minutes, 50 minutes to go. It's going to be an impossible task. So I'd be lying if I said I didn't think that was it. I think Johnny even said when he stood next to me, he said, "Yeah, the game's done now." And then Saka instantly went and scored about 30 seconds later. But it at the time, I did believe that finally we'd run out of luck. But in hindsight, I'm not surprised because again, we have individual brilliance, and if that continues to pull us out of trouble, then I'm happy with that. And I think leading into the goal, we could kind of see it coming. Switzerland were just starting to put us under pressure. We were sitting deeper and deeper. There wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a surprise to me that we'd gone 1-0 down. And I think we were all saying that it's proof that if Southgate does have a slight weakness, it's that he can sometimes be reactive, other than proactive. And he instantly made the changes after we'd gone, 1-0 down. So, yeah, at the time, I did think we've been found out. This is it now. But again, in hindsight, with the players we've got, I'm also not surprised that once again we found a way back into it.
I also had a bit of a strange feeling when it happened. Because just before that, while I was watching it, me and my dad were just having a conversation about the election. And we were so kind of tuned out from the match. And it was so kind of like business as usual. That's going on in the background. And then it happened and we were like, oh, fuck's sake. And then, but there was 50% of me head thinking that could be it. It would be so unlucky because John Stone's deflection kind of put it on a play for him. And would it have happened if that didn't happen? But then there was another part of us think I was looking at the clock. I saw 16 minutes left, I think it was at that point. And I was like, is it too late? Because before I even looked at the clock, my thoughts were, we're going to have to do what we did against Slovakia again. And there was a kind of quiet confidence in our resilience that we could do that. I saw the clock and I'm like, we haven't got much time to do it in. But it wasn't necessarily like me being resigned to this is it. It was more like, I think we can do it, but it's just, do we have the time to do it?
Well, I thought we were done. That's why I tweeted Southgate boot. I was literally just thinking, God, Southgate's just so reactionary and this is on him, basically. And you know what, fair play. I do want to credit Southgate and praise him because that was his 100th game in charge of England. And to be honest, the change of culture that he is basically overseeing, that he has basically created himself is really good. And I was ready to literally boot him into the River Tees yesterday. After that goal, I just felt like I was kind of resigned to, we can't do this again. Like, we can't keep getting away with these performances that aren't really good, to be honest. And that goal was coming. As I said, we sat deep, we invited that pressure. And then to see Mbolo put Switzerland 1-0 up, I wasn't surprised. But yeah, there's a lot of fair plays going on here. So fair play to England and Gareth Southgate for that. Saka equalised not long after, as Matt said, which links brilliantly to the Praise in Place, which is sponsored by Jordan Pickford's water bottle. Brilliant preparation there from Jordan Pickford. What does that say? Does it say a kanji dive left? And then he dived left. We love that. I'm going to start with Saka, and I'm going to let you talk about him because I know that you wanted to praise Bukayo Saka. I've said in previous pods that I love him. I was so happy for him. Talk about who you want to praise. And I'm guessing you are going to start with Saka.
Yeah, Saka has to be the main one. I thought he was our best player yesterday, and I didn't think it was close either. Like you say, on the wing, he was switching up his game. If only Harry Kane had a little bit better movement yesterday, I genuinely think we would have had quite a few, because we were going for that. To make another Borough reference, Isaiah Jones kind of can't get the ball off the floor, cut back quite a lot.
I thought that during the game, Tom.
It was always going to the defender, and I was like, oh, should have called up Isaiah Jones, have him on the right and Saka on the left. Could be doing it on both sides. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one with Saka as well, because in general, I don't enjoy watching inverted wingers, because I just kind of think when he cuts in and he has it on his right foot, unless you're extremely ambidextrous with both feet, like you're not going to be as accurate as you would be on your other foot. But to be fair to him, he was putting it into some decent areas. We just didn't have anyone there, and there wasn't exactly the time for him to look up and measure a pass anywhere else. Like it had to be done in split seconds, but he was doing such a good job of it, and just sadly there was no one else there. Konsa as well, I want to praise because he was absolutely stuck to Mbolo yesterday. Didn't give him a second. Worth noting when Mbolo was when he scored, it wasn't Konsa marking him, which I think if it had been, he probably wouldn't have been able to. And then thirdly, I just want to kind of give a bit of praise to Ivan Toney for his penalty technique. Brentford fans probably see this every, however often they get a penalty. I don't know. But to me, that was the first time I've seen Ivan Toney take a penalty. And that technique is up there with like Yakubu as one of the best penalty techniques I have ever seen. The fact that you just stare down the goalkeeper, don't even have to look at the ball and it still went in. And this is Jan Sommer as well, who is a fantastic goalkeeper. I watched Switzerland knock out France. I believe it was in the last Euros, and that was in a penalty shootout. He did well in that. Like I really rate Jan Sommer as a keeper, and he couldn't get near any of our penalties yesterday. But the fact that he couldn't get near Tony's as well while he was being stared out by Ivan Toney, that was such a good penalty.
Amazing, Matt.
Yeah, I'd definitely stick Saka in there. I mean, throughout the game itself, he was fantastic. And if it wasn't for Harry Kane being 5 seconds behind, it's like he was buffering. The amount of times that Saka put so many balls into some fantastic areas, and Kane was like, he just entered the box. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how can you not anticipate that Saka's going to put the ball into the area? But he kept, stretching their defense down the right. He's been our best player consistently throughout the tournament. And I've just got to say, I think along with everyone across the country, we were all, I think, extra behind him specifically when he stepped up to take that penalty, because I said to you after the game, D, I feel like all of his hard work would have been completely ignored by some had he missed that penalty. Even if we'd have gone through, especially if we'd have gone out, I think all of his brilliant work thus far had just been completely chucked in the bin. And I think that we all love a redemption arc. And I've seen loads of compilations on TikTok already of the missing the final of 2020 and all the horrible abuse he got off the back of that, which is just obviously completely unacceptable. And to see him step up again, I think that takes balls in itself. And I think he said in the press conference afterwards, didn't he? I can't recall the words he said, but his mentality was fantastic. So to see him especially step up and score was such a great moment. So he is absolutely top of the praise and place. I agree on Konsa. I think to step into a game of such magnitude, to come in for probably our second best player or equally our best player, Mark Gay, he was great. I think he might still be stuck to Mbolo on his flight back to Switzerland, to be honest. He might have even jumped on the flight with him. They might have to unpack him out of his suitcase, but he was great. And I think all the penalty takers deserve credit because, as I said at the top of the pod, like it was the best executed penalty shootout I've ever seen from an England team. I mean, the technique from every single one of them, it was like, no, we weren't watching an England team. It was like some other side. It was unlike anything I've ever seen. I think Trent to come in, step up as he did. I mean, it's almost like he was chucked under the bus at the start of the tournament. We thought we probably wouldn't see much of him again, but for him to come in and step up and take the winning pen. Ivan Toney's technique is ridiculous, at such a stage to take a penalty with that much confidence and arrogance is ridiculous. The balls to do that. And it's the same for all the others. Bellingham's penalty was great. They all deserve credit for that. But I'd agree with Tom. Saka and Konsa would probably be my pair from the overall game itself.
I echo everything that you two have just said. I'm just going to add on Saka that defensively, his output there was really good as well, especially coming towards the end of extra time. So yeah, I absolutely love Bukayo Saka. I've said it on previous pods. He's just such an easy player to root for. I mean, you see that smile of his, and it's so endearing, and the way that he plays as well, with that freedom. And yeah, he's a fantastic player, and Arsenal fans have seen the goal that he scored to equalise the game many, many times. So versatile, so talented, and such a hard worker, and especially after Euro 2020, where he got that completely abhorrent abuse for missing a spot kick. That is the happiest I think I felt, and yeah, I was shitting myself when he when he went up to take the penalty. We will talk about the penalties now then, because I really want to gauge how you two were feeling when it was basically done and it was penalties. So please tell me how you were feeling going into that penalty shootout.
Nervous. I believe my words were like, "Oh God, I don't know if I can face penalties at around that point." That being said, I in my head, I was still kind of feeling a little bit confident, but then I'm having to kind of override that feeling by telling myself, "You've seen England lose on penalties before. You've got no right to feel confident about this." I think the penalty where I was kind of most nervous was actually Bellingham's. But I think that was because I'm kind of sat there like, Bellingham's so confident. I'm scared that he's going to try a Panenka, or like he's going to just aim for the roof of the net and like
God.
blaze it over or something. It would be typical England if Bellingham was the one who had missed it as well. So yeah, I was more nervous for that one, but the penalty takers that we had, the fact that, you know, Palmer takes them for Chelsea, Alexander Arnold's a bit of a dead ball specialist. I'd never thought Saka was missing. I just thought life would be too cruel if he did. Yeah, it was it kind of like a war between two sides of my head during that penalty shootout, where I was confident, but then telling myself I shouldn't be. All the while, like I said, my heart's going, 180 beats per minute, trying to watch it. I hope we don't have to go through the same thing on Wednesday.
Oh God, I know. I tell you what, I was that Danny Dyer meme. I am fucking shitting myself. Honestly, as I said, I was stuck to the shutters. I was on my haunches. I was doing the warning. My hands were on my knees. The movement that I basically took on the profession of a breathwork specialist. I was probably deeply inhaling and then exhaling, trying to calm myself down. And you know what? That Akanji penalty being missed was such a weight lifted. I can't imagine how I would have felt had that been scored, because I think that just kind of calms the emotion down a little bit. Horrendous penalty, by the way. Really shit. I will credit Jordan Pickford, though, because he saved it. And it was a good save, but it was a shit penalty. I think there could be two truths here. And I want to mention Trent Alexander-Arnold's penalty, because the whip on that, I love that. I really do. Not quite sure it took the net off, as Guy Mowbray said, but then we're etching into football cliches territory here. But yeah, I was petrified, and I let out the biggest double fist pump roar that you've ever seen from anyone, because I think it was just that pent up frustration that, again, England haven't been great, and they've got themselves into into a position, where you're having to rely on penalties, and we know the record of penalties, even despite recent better fortunes. So the celebration that when Cole Palmer scored his to get us on the board, I just thought, thank fuck. And then yeah, it was delirium after that. Matt, how were you feeling during that penalty shootout? You were at Playbrew as well. Were you going through it just as much as I was?
I think it's impossible in our DNA. I think we've been brought up through a time where England and penalties instantly has that horrible stigma. I mean, you're not human if you don't get ridiculously nervous for a penalty shootout, regardless of how good your record is. And I think naturally it was just that kind of, oh God, here we go again. As good as the lineup was, exactly like Tom, I couldn't agree more with Bellingham. He was the one where I thought, oh my God, you just worry that they're so good, they might try and do something too good. Like in the Copa America, Messi missed his penalty by taking a Panenka and he hit the bar. And you sometimes think these players who are that good might just get a little bit too ahead of themselves, but they were all so composed and concise with their technique, and they didn't let the emotion get the better of them. They just went through their routine, did their job absolutely brilliantly well. And yeah, I completely agree on Pickford. I think he deserves a bit of praise, although he had it on his water bottle that, which way to go, he still has to save them. And the Akanji miss just gave us that little bit of room. I know we were still one England miss away from it being back to sort of level, but it gave us that little bit of wriggle room where if we just kept scoring, we were one ahead, and they then couldn't afford to miss. So missing that first penalty was massive. And I found it really intriguing, actually, that they put 2 centre-backs or 2 defenders up first. I think that showed that their penalty takers were nowhere near as as quality as what ours were. But saving that first penalty did go a long way in settling my nerves slightly, to a degree, but it was still absolutely, of course, nerve-wracking.
I want to add on Bellingham's. For me, I was nervous about that. I mean, I was nervous about all of them, I'm going to be honest. But I feel like there was a little bit more nervousness about that one because it followed the Akanji miss. So, yeah, there was a degree of, oh, God, if he misses this, then we're kind of back to, like, we've lost that advantage. But in hindsight, it should never have been in doubt, really. And those penalties do set up a semi-final tie against the Netherlands after their comeback victory over Turkey yesterday. How do you two see that one panning out?
Wouldn't even want to hazard a guess on that one. Okay, I think I mentioned on the last pod, I watched Netherlands versus France a couple of weeks ago, and I was at my work starts night. And I don't know if both teams were equally good or equally shit. I'm going to guess that the way that France have been playing, it was potentially equally shit. So, but then I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to not give them respect. They're still in the semi-finals of the Euros. They've had to win their way here. Yeah, the Netherlands are a good team. Because some of the players that they have, Van Dijk versus Harry Kane with his movement from yesterday is going to be extremely one-sided by the looks of it. But yeah, I wouldn't want to hazard a guess on how it's going to go, but I'm hopeful heading into it.
I'm wondering if England will switch their system back to the 4-2-3-1 or stick with the wing backs. I think that's going to be particularly interesting. Obviously, they've got Cody Gakpo in good form. My dad said Gakpo yesterday, so the new hate name just dropped. But yeah, Matt, how are you feeling ahead of that? Like, how do you kind of feel like it will play out, that game against the Netherlands?
I think it could be much of the same. Like I said about Switzerland, you can't disregard them, even if they don't look like they're absolutely firing on all cylinders, because I don't think anyone in the semi-finals is. Spain themselves needed a late winner to get past Germany. France have looked absolutely terrible. I saw that that Paul Rudd meme, where he's like sat there and he's like, "Look at us, who'd have thought? Yeah, not me." And that's like England and France like somehow finding their way to the semi-final. So, yeah, it's one of them. I don't think anyone's playing to their full potential right now, but you've still got to give respect to the side you're coming up against, regardless of how good they've looked, how bad they've looked, whether we've got a better squad than them or not. It's who's the better team on the day. So we can't rest on our laurels. We've got to once again, I think, step up once more. Can we afford to go behind again? Who knows at this point? I'll still probably shit myself if we do, but there's encouraging signs, I feel. And as I say, if you're going to peak, you don't want to peak yet. You want to peak in the final. So as long as we just improve again, we might be okay. I don't want us to regress at this point. That's my worry. I don't want us to regress and what happened, against Slovakia and last night again be a little bit of a fluke with how we sort of come from behind and dragged ourselves back from the brink of going out. So I'd like a more reassured performance, but as long as we keep improving and finding a way to win, I'm happy.
I'm a little bit wary of Xavi Simons because he's not been great in this tournament from what I've seen. Against Romania, there were so many times that he could have had a shot, and he came from the Finazaz superlative school of chopping inside and chopping outside and not getting a shot off. And I think he hasn't scored yet. He had that disallowed goal in one of the earlier rounds, one of the group games. I just have a feeling that he might announce himself in the tournament a little bit late. He might announce himself in the tournament in regards to scoring a goal. Hopefully not, though. Team changes for the game. I know that I mentioned, will England stay with the 3 at the back, the 3-4-2-1, or will they go back to the 4-2-3-1? But in terms of personnel changes, Matt, Jake from our Telegram chat asks, does Konza retain his spot next game, or should Gahey come back in?
I'd bring Gahey back in, I think. I think firstly it would be harsh to not bring him back in. Konza deserves so much credit for how he defended against Mbolo especially, but from what I gather with the Netherlands, they have Depay through the centre, so we might not be dealing with as much of a physical forward as we had against Switzerland. So I think naturally, as great as Konza's been, we know we've got a fantastic replacement if something was to happen with Gahey again. So it's reassuring to have that quality and squad depth. But yeah, I think Gahey has been one of the players of the tournament for us. So it would be harsh on him, and I feel I 100% feel like he should come back in to that centre back pairing or a back three.
It's good options to have, Don, isn't it? I think a lot was said about England's centre back partner for John Stones in this tournament, and we've seen both Gahey and Konza come in and perform really well. So to be honest, I'm happy with either, but I would agree that Gahey comes back in. Predictions, guys, the fun part of the pod. Tom, you're a little bit higher spirits than last game, but are you going to go for an England win?
Well, I went for Switzerland to win the last game, didn't I?
You did.
And if that's contributed to jinxing them, I'm going to go 1-0 Netherlands on Wednesday.
Fingers crossed. Matt?
Some reverse psychology you got going on there. I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to predict us to win 2-1. I think it'll be extra time again. I just can't see us doing it in 90 minutes. Whether we go behind or not, I don't know, but I think we'll do it 2-1. Extra time. Harry Kane penalty, Dana. There you go. I'll nick one of yours.
I was going to say, yeah, I was literally like the cogs in my brain were ticking there thinking of penalty, and all it was in my head was Harry Kane penalty. I think I've said Harry Kane penalty in like every one of the games that we've kind of predicted so far. So I'm just going to say again, Harry Kane penalty, England win 1-0. Fingers crossed. But we will wrap up here. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give us feedback. It is really appreciated. Shot the video a like and a comment, get involved in all of the discussion as well. And why not share it with your friends? We would massively appreciate that too. So from Dusseldorf to Dortmund, England are on their way to a semi-final. Up the England.